All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this re-recording of our presentation on a guide to becoming a LCSH book reviewer. We had some technical difficulties, so if you were able to attend our webinar live, we had to re-record because the recording didn't work out. So we're trying this again. So as way of introduction, I'm here with my co-editor, Jason, but I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Julie Judkins, and I am an associate professor and the department head of the Special Collections and Archives Research Center at Oregon State University in Corvallis, Oregon. My current research involves the ethical archiving of misinformation and conspiracy theories, as well as mindful academic library management. I have previously published in the American Archivist, Collections, and the Journal of Copyright in Education and Librarianship. Now we'll turn it over to Jason to introduce himself.
Hello, my name is Jason Martin. I am the Dean of the Evans Library at the Florida Institute of Technology, otherwise known as Florida Tech. My research area is on leadership in academic libraries and mindfulness. And I published in college and research libraries as well as the Journal of Academic Librarianship.
So when we did this webinar live, we were joined by our co-editor, Brett, who is the book reviews editor. So I've put his name up on the screen so that you know who he is. His email is on our website, and I'll also be including that later in the presentation. But you can also Google him and find his information if you need to contact him with questions. I know he welcomes your questions. So first of all, if you are not familiar with our journal, we call it LCHS for short, but that is short for Libraries, Culture, History, and Society. It's the official peer-reviewed journal of the Library History Roundtable of the American Library Association. It is the only journal in the United States devoted to the history of libraries and librarianship. We position, the journal LCHS positions library history as its own field of scholarship and features scholars from a broad array of disciplines to examine the history and cultural context of libraries as institutions, collections, and services, as well as the experiences of library employees and users. There are no limits on time period or geographical location for the content in our journal, and research on libraries of every type is welcome. While many of our authors have a background in librarianship or libraries, we are also interested in submissions from authors who work outside librarianship, but have research interests related to the history of libraries and librarianship. So some ground rules and how to become a book reviewer. First of all, and most importantly, you want to avoid conflicts of interest. You do not want to review books for a promotional purpose, which also means that you are not allowed to review books of friends or people that you otherwise have a relationship with. So if you are a relative of the author or you work closely with them, it'd be best to avoid reviewing their book because that could bring in a conflict of interest. You might somehow be biased, even if you're not aware of it. And even if you have a perceived conflict of interest, say you worked on a task force with somebody or otherwise worked with someone closely, even if you're not very familiar with their work in general, you want to avoid that probably. If you have any questions, please reach out to us and we can kind of talk through these scenarios with you. You can either reach out to myself or Jason, but also Brett as well, our book review editor. Another thing to keep in mind is that you want to disclose your positionality. And if you're not familiar with the word positionality, it means how you identify your distinct identities. LCHS has a criteria that all of our authors, including our book review authors, disclose their positionality. And we do this both to be transparent but also inclusive. We have a policy. You can read our EDIAR policy on our website. But we believe that it's important that marginalized groups, underrepresented groups are reviewed by individuals who have knowledge of that community. And again, that we think results in the best review or article. So authors of our long form articles are asked to do a positionality statement, but book reviewers are as well. You also should have an interest in the book's topic and have relevant knowledge or expertise in the subject matter. So, it's best to review books that are tied to your work or your research interests, so that you can give a thorough and comprehensive review of that book, so that you can know what literature is already available on that topic and potentially bring that into your review and say, this is filling a gap in the literature, or this repeats something that's already available elsewhere. It's important to have that context when you're writing the review. And then, I gave a description of our journal and our audience. So, we only include books that are relevant to our audience. We mostly review nonfiction books. There have been a few fiction books that could be potential books to review if they overlap with the history of libraries or librarians. So if you ever have questions about a book, we'll talk a little bit later about how to suggest a book for review, but definitely you want it to be within our audience. And then, in terms of logistics, we have a website that I've put the URL up on the screen. So you can either request a book from a list that already exists, the books available for review list. Those are the ones that haven't otherwise been assigned. Or if you have a book, just like I was saying, potentially there's a fiction book, as an example, that you think is relevant to our audience, that we wouldn't maybe otherwise think of. You should contact Brett, who's the book review editor, and his email is up on the slide. And you can ask if that book is a possibility, or if that would be available to review. And Brett will get back to you about that. Before you do this, we do ask that you check the list on our website, books already assigned to a reviewer. It could be that you have a book in mind that someone else has already claimed as a reviewer. So just to save everyone time, you want to make sure to check that list before you email. And then as a perk and also as a thank you, since this is unpaid labor, you do receive one free review copy of the book to help you complete your review. And that is yours to keep, or otherwise donate to your library or a friend once you're done with the review. The only thing that we ask is that if you, for whatever reason, are not able to complete the review, that you return that copy to Brett and to LCHS, because it's not good form for us to ask for another copy from the publisher. That is something that they give for promotional purposes. And we want to be able to pass that on to the person who will be able to complete that review. So I turn it over to Jason for how to write a book review.
Oh, thank you, Julie. So we're going to talk about the actual writing of the book review, and it's really three parts. So there's a description of the book, there's critical assessment and evaluation of the book, and then there's a recommendation by the reviewer. So the first part, that description, is you're going to describe what the book is about, and then give a short summary of the book and its main points. So this book is on the rise of public libraries in China, and the author lays out these three main catalysts that move this forward, and then kind of describe the book this way. And that's where a lot of people kind of think book reviews start and end. But with LCHS, we want these reviews to be part of the scholarly conversation on this topic. So that's where the second part is becomes so important. That's the critical assessment and evaluation of the book and its arguments. So for this part, you want to compare the book to similar books on the topic. So this requires some kind of expertise or familiarity with other books on this topic, other writings on this topic, or the ability to familiarize yourself with the main works on this particular subject or area. You want to be able to give the pros and cons and the strengths and weaknesses of the book. And to do this, to really be effective, you have to go beyond just the content of the book and really look at its central ideas and arguments. So again, the rise of public libraries in China. Point one, the author fails to consider these other sources in these other books that lay out a different story. Point two, the author doesn't support that point very well. And then really go into and look at what sources did the author use in this book. Again, this example of public libraries in China. If you look at the sources, are most of the sources secondary sources? Are they mostly primary sources? This is a, these should be history books, somehow related to history and culture, so there should be a lot of primary sources. Then look at those primary sources. Are they mostly in English and from the West? Well, that's not very good considering the fact that you're dealing with Chinese libraries and Chinese history. What were the methods that the author used, and how did they go about examining, and the frameworks that they used to examine these sources and lay out their arguments? And then, finally, kind of who is the author? What's the author's background and the qualifications for them to write on this topic? If you look and you say, hey, this author has never written on Chinese history or Chinese libraries before, and from all that I can tell they don't even speak or read Chinese fluently, and you would say that they're not good authority to be able to write on this topic and on this subject. And so that makes that critical assessment and evaluation really important. And the best reviewers and the best book reviews are able to weave together those first two things. So they start to describe the book. This book is on the rise of public libraries in China. The first argument point that the author makes is A, but they don't support that point very well. They don't pull in these kind of sources and think about the arguments from these authors. And you just kind of weave those things together, and that makes the review flow really well together, and makes it more interesting to read that way as well. And then finally is the recommendation. And so you want to conclude the review with writing about how the book is germane to library history or to the library historian. How does it inform the study in various fields of library history and the field of history in general, as well as any other relevant topics and fields? And it can be as short as a sentence, I recommend this book, I don't recommend this book, or it can be a little more nuanced. You could say, this book is fine for a general collection on library history, or this book is really good for that kind of the complete in-depth collection that would be maybe more geared to graduate students or something like that. But it can just be really just one, maybe two sentences at the end of the review of where you think this book fits and where it belongs in a collection.
And then some technical aspects. So the length of our book reviews are generally 500 to 1,000 words. They can be longer for a multi-volume work, or if you're reviewing multiple books at once. So again, you'd want to contact Brett about that, and maybe the two of you can talk about what that extended length would be. But in general, you're aiming for 500 to 1,000 words. You also want to follow our general submission guidelines for articles. That would include using Chicago format. The book review guidelines are found in those general guidelines and are on our book review website. The book review page, also website, has model book reviews that you can read to help you. So we have some exemplary examples. If Jason just did a great job of laying out the structure of a general book review. But if you want to see what that looks like in practice, I encourage you to look on our website with the model book reviews. And then one reminder is that book reviews have the same deadline as our issues. We publish twice a year. And the deadlines have recently been moved. So if for whatever reason you've already reviewed a book and are just watching this webinar to refresh your memory of what it's like to review a book for LCHS, know that our deadlines have changed to align with our general issue deadline. So, those deadlines may have changed if you've reviewed for us before. And those deadlines are January 30th and July 31st. Well, it's not a live webinar, so you probably don't have any questions, but if you that you can ask right now. But please do email us or drop a line if you have any questions of something that we didn't cover. Jason and I are available to answer questions, not only about book reviews, but also about article topics you might have, or if you're having trouble accessing information you need on our website, we're always happy to answer questions. Was there anything that I did not mention, Jason, that we should?
No, Julie, I think you did a great job, and yeah, that was very, very informative and very good. Thank you.
Great. Well, we look forward to you joining us as book reviewers, and we hope this was helpful to you. Thank you.
Thank you.